Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, I'm Jerry Borton. My wife and back, Joe Borton. We are excited to be here. This seminar, this workshop is entitled Silencing Your Inner Critic, or at least Muffling. So we'll see if we can get that to work. Because we're a fairly small group, we'll probably have some time where we can share things. So if your inner critic is telling you you have nothing to share or you can't share, remember your inner critic is only lying when it's talking. So don't be afraid to jump in. So what is an inner critic? Can I just definitions, ideas on what you think the inner critic is? Preferably if you share them out loud would be.
I think mine's a woman with a bad whip sometimes, and she's telling me, get on it, stop doing that, what's wrong with you?
Yep.
Grow up.
Yep, grow up, what's wrong with you?
Mhm.
Yep, yeah, that fits. Anyone else?
I think it's part of you that just feels like that you're not worth anything.
Okay. Yeah, you're worthless. Yeah. How about this definition? It's the dreadful feeling that you don't belong, that you'll soon be found out as a fraud, you can't do anything right, or you're not enough. Okay, that's a good definition of an inner critic, or some might call it the imposter syndrome. I used the word inner critic here. They're not exactly the same, but they're very, very close. If you're not sure you have an inner critic, let me ask you a couple of questions. You might have an inner critic that's too loud if you're holding yourself to a standard you wouldn't place on someone you love. Guilty? Okay, yeah, we're on the right room so far, yeah, okay. Or do you overanalyze your shortcomings? Okay, we're on a roll here. How about ruminating over minor missteps, worry, and assuming if something's wrong, it's your fault?
Maybe.
You know, I grew up believing, yes. You know, I grew up believing that I was personally responsible for anything from World War II on. The trouble is, I was born 15 years after the end of World War II, so you know, everything's my fault. We already talked about the inner critic only lies when it's talking. Anyone here do it yourselfers? You like projects? You spend the weekends at Lowe's or Home Depot? Okay, a couple of nods, a couple of shaking like this, you know. Allowing your inner critic to thrive is basically do-it-yourself bullying. All right,
Wow.
come on in. Yeah.
And the
So-
keys aren't taken, they just have papers to grab.
How is it that I got in the room today, speaking with you? I grew up in rural Ohio, and I was born with cerebral palsy. So, you know, growing up in the early '60s, there were a lot of things that a person with cerebral palsy weren't supposed to be able to do. You know, so like going to school, coaching a Little League baseball team, going to the college I went to, were all things that supposedly I wouldn't be able to do. Which put me on the path of achievement and sometimes overachievement. And for me, that started when I was in first grade. I was held back a year before I started kindergarten. So I did kindergarten at age 6, and at age 7, I was to go into first grade. Now, back in rural Ohio, back in those days, this was before all the laws to try to make education accessible to all. So I was blessed in that one of the elders of the church we attended was also the school superintendent. So one day he came over, they went in the living room, and I said hello, and I was dismissed to some other part of the house, and they talked. So the first day of first grade came. I didn't know it then, but I'm basically an academic nerd at heart. So going to school is fun for me. So first day of first grade, I knew which desk was mine because it was the one up on stilts. So I got behind my desk and had all the things first graders are supposed to have. And the morning went great. At lunchtime, my mom came back to school, drove me home, fed me lunch, and put me in front of the TV. And with all the wisdom that a first grader can muster up, I said to Mom, well, wait, I'm in first grade, I'm supposed to go to school all day. And Mom said, well, we all thought it would be best for you to try school half a day, and if it works out, maybe sometime you'll be able to go to school all day. Well, it didn't take me long to do the calculation that if I went to school half a day every year, it was gonna take like 1,000 years to graduate. It almost did anyway, but 1,000 years to graduate. So I said to my mom, well, wait, wouldn't it make more sense to let me go to school for a full day, and if that doesn't work, cut back to half a day? And I don't really remember my mom saying anything, but she picked me up, put me back in the car, drove me back to school, rolled me into the first grade room and said, he's all yours. And from then on, I started to achieve and still feel the need to achieve something. In high school, I was a Little League baseball coach. First year we won 0 games. Second year we won 1 game. Third year we won the championship.
Did you have any support services at all?
This was back
When you were in, like, when you first started?
1970s. The support services were my mother and father
Right, so nothing else.
and
Yeah.
friends at church.
Okay.
So we had a support network. There wasn't such a thing as support services at that time. So I've had the need to achieve. Then I also suffer with the if onlys. You've heard of if onlys? If only I had more resources. If only I had another degree. Anytime somebody's got a certificate for them, it's like, I need that. Do I really? My wife's shaking her head now. Okay. How about you guys? Have you felt the need to overachieve or suffer with the if onlys? Would you mind sharing one of those? Yeah.
For me, I came from like more of a trauma background and child abuse and things like that. So I went through life doing the if onlys and overachieving because I felt like, so I went into the foster care system and things like that. And I always felt like if only I was good enough, then they would have loved me.
Right.
Even after I was adopted, I always achieved everything at the highest standard because I was afraid if I didn't, that they wouldn't love me anymore and they would send me back.
Yeah. And when you did achieve, you got like 5 minutes of people really showing you appreciation and support, so.
Yeah.
Like a drug, you need more of that.
Yeah.
Right? Very good, anybody else? Okay, again, if your inner critic's telling you to stay quiet, it's only, it only lies when it's talking. Anyway, moving on. I gotta tell you that my inner critic was screaming in the weeks leading up to this. It's like, read one more article, read one more book. What makes you think you belong in this room? They give you the 3 o'clock slide, all kinds of things screaming in this room. So give me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how loud is your inner critic screaming these days? Throw out a number. 20. Wow. Okay, so you've got the inner critic radio channel just playing
All the time.
loud all the time. Other numbers, anybody else?
I'm gonna say 8.
8, okay,
I'm gonna say a 7 on normal days, but there's lots of days it goes up to 10. for sure.
okay, cool, so today,
Today I'm at probably 6 or 5. I think
awesome.
Today's-
We'll try not to raise it. Cool, excellent, anybody else?
I'm a 10.
A 10. All right, welcome. You're in the right place. You're in the right place. I believe that almost everybody has an inner critic. Now, there's one person I know who may actually not have one, but I can only think of one. Those of us who are members of minorities are more likely to have a louder inner critic. Looking around everybody in the room, all of us are part of a minority, whether it's a person with a disability or a person of a different race or a woman. All of us in the room qualify as a minority. And I found this interesting. Members of minority are more likely, way more likely, to have an inner critic. Part of the reason that some of us feel like we don't belong is because we weren't supposed to be in the spaces we're in today. I can tell you, growing up, speaking in a group of folks like you was never in the career path. No way I was gonna get up in front of all those people to do this person with disability. Not gonna happen, but here I am. Let me just tell you something. I believe that if you are in the room, you belong in the room. And anyone who tells you otherwise is lying, particularly the inner critic. By the way, the inner critic only lies when he's talking. Did I say that? Do I live that? Still working on it, okay? So, some of what we deal with our inner critic is systemic. And I thought about doing this seminar looking at systemic issues to bring out the inner critic. I decided not to do that for a couple of reasons. One, being a self-advocate or an advocate for yourself as a disability is an important thing to do, and we need to advocate systemically, but it's very hard to do. Change is hard, but I believe the change that we can make is the change that we can make in ourselves. I think it was Gandhi who said, be the change you want to be. So we have permission to begin making that change. Is there anybody leader in like a service agency or a support group or anything like that? Okay, good. I'm gonna say it anyway. One of the ways that we can change the system and change ourselves is to be authentic and transparent. In fact, authenticity is the buzzword of the business world today. You know, everybody needs to be authentic. You can help the system silence the inner critic by being authentic and transparent. And if you see a leader trying to do that, encourage them, and they might be a leader worth following, because there are a lot of people out there that say, I can't show you my true self, because if I did, you wouldn't follow. Guess what? 98% of the research says the opposite is true. If the leaders, those who are trying to lead us, are authentic and transparent, we are more likely to want to follow. Agree? Disagree? I see nod yes. Okay, great. So, look at it this way. You can see my wheelchair. You can't see some of the stuff that I deal with that on my wheelchair, but you can see my wheelchair. We need to send a message to those who lead us that we need to see their wheelchair too. Because the more we do that, the more real we become. So, what are some of the rooms that I'm in where people didn't think I belonged or wasn't sure? First, I'm a husband. 27 years November, I got it right.
Well, close.
Close.
Is he still
28.
28. One of those years just flew by.
The more important part is Wednesday anniversary.
November the 11th.
He's got it.
Or as my friends like to remind me, Veterans Day. Okay, I'm a husband. I'm an ordained minister. I lead a nonprofit. I've helped found 3 nonprofits. So those are the rooms that I'm regularly in. What about some rooms you're in that you didn't think, or others felt like your inner critic feels like you don't belong? What are some of the rooms or some of the roles that you currently are in? Again, go ahead.
Author, speaker.
Author and speaker.
Author and speaker, yep. I'm with you. My voice, my speaking voice is kind of like Kermit the Frog after steroids and rehab. You know, this is not, nobody's going, I want to pay this guy to be my announcer, right? Okay, so it's speaker, good, another one. Yeah.
Feeling like I don't know if I'm good enough for employment and if I deserve to be in the room to even get that job and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not qualified, so I'm not gonna apply. And then I apply and I get 2 interviews. I mean, you know, it's like, believe me, if you're in the room, you go for it. You belong in the room. Others, this is good.
friends. Like, I went back to school, and sometimes that makes me feel like I don't belong because everybody seems to be so much younger than me, and technology-wise, I think they're all a step ahead of me and things like that, so.
Girl, I'm 40 and I just went back to school, so.
Okay. But those are areas, or even with friends, you know, sometimes your friends have higher jobs than you do, or they're making more, and they're talking about a level that you feel like you're not on the same level as them, so why are you even friends?
True, very true. One of the cool things about being an older student is sometimes you become like the room mom.
Yes.
Which,
Yes.
Yeah.
which I think is kind of a cool role. Yeah. You know, going back, I went back to school several years ago and got my master's degree in organizational leadership. The program was interesting because it was 1/3 business people, 1/3 church leaders, and 1/3 nonprofit leaders. And I wondered, could I really do this work? What I found is I could hang with those folks. Again, inner critic line. Okay. So, what do you do when your inner critic is screaming at you? You can yell back. That's not a bad plan, you know, because you're in my head.
Don't blow his head up any more
I
than what it
can,
already
I
is.
can yell out at you. That's not a bad, I'm gonna add that to the next. When your inner critic is screaming at you, what you wanna do is decide whether or not to feed your inner critic or your inner coach. A coach, well, let me say your inner critic interrogates you and why you're not good enough. A coach interrogates reality. Your inner critic might be saying, you know, I don't belong in this room doing this seminar. Your inner coach may be saying, what are all the things you did to prepare? You know, your inner critic may be telling you you're not qualified to do something. So ask yourself the question, what does being qualified look like? And I'm probably more qualified than I believe. Avoid generalization. Your inner critic always uses, avoid generalization. Your inner critic almost always uses generalization. For instance, how many times have you told yourself, I always? How many times have you told yourself, I never? Rebecca Lyons, in her book Resilience, says that I always, I never are loaded with character assassination, especially when they're directed to ourselves. And again, Rebecca Lyons, the name of the book is Building a Resilient Life. I have the resources in the back of the list, so I'm adding one. Building a Resilient Life, How Adversity Awakens Strength, Hope, and Meaning. So, the way to feed your inner coach is that whenever you take your inner critic, whenever your inner critic is being exceptionally loud, take it to coffee and ask you questions. What is it that's making you feel like an imposter right now? What is it that's making me feel like an imposter right now? When else have I felt this way? What proof does your inner critic have that is correct? You know, let me throw in an example of a job layoff. I've been laid off before, me too. You might be thinking, what is it I've done to make this layoff happen? What skills or weaknesses do I have that are not keeping my job? A better question might be, what career opportunities am I free to explore right now? Or if you're working, what if senior leadership likes my presentation? What if my idea isn't stupid, but it's the breakthrough that moves the project forward? What if my proposal revolutionizes how we work as a team? You don't know until you put it out there. Also, when we're letting our inner critic thrive, it reminds us of everything that's wrong with us, why we're weak in some areas. The problem with the inner critic is there's a small little kernel of maybe truth, but it never talks about our strengths, and we need to remind ourselves what our strengths are. Like, what are my gifts and abilities? What do I do well? What do I enjoy doing? Chances are good that if there's something you really enjoy doing, it's because you have a talent or something surrounding that. Oh, well, talking in public just comes easy to me. Well, that's a gift. Celebrate that gift. What successes have I had personally and professionally? College degree, master's degree, advanced degrees. Who can I network with to brainstorm ideas and encourage me? I had a counselor once who told me that I should never do self-evaluation alone. That actually what he said was, he knows somebody else who knew me and all the great things they say about me, none of which can I agree with because of, counselor-client confidentiality, that if that's true, maybe that should change the way I think about things. Sometimes I obsess about stupid leadership moves I've met, and I meet monthly with a group of fellow leaders from other industries, and there was a day where I was talking about the latest stupid thing I did at work, and Wayne, one of my friends and colleagues, reminded me, we all do stupid stuff. We all do stupid stuff. And we recover from most of them, and even the ones we don't recover from, God has a way of finding a way to use even that. Okay?
And much of the stupid stuff we do isn't always related to disability.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one to remember.
Yeah, that was difficult. That was one of the cool things about being married is I realized, wow, those of you who are not disabled, you deal with some stuff too. Whereas before before anything that went wrong was because of my disability, okay? Now I know that, no, so what this is, I'm how should I say it? Sometimes a distracted husband, or worse. But those are opportunities to learn and grow. Think another tool, think back to a time where you were in a difficult situation that you eventually overcame. Anybody want to share one? The inside voice again, okay. Drugs, okay? How did you overcome that?
Got tired of it.
Okay, and then because you were tired of it, you,
Hey, distance myself from the people that I was.
okay, cool.
Do that.
Here's the thing, if you can overcome a drug addiction, you probably could do some other stuff too. Have there been instances in your life when you looked, or you were in a difficult situation, but you told yourself, if I can stop doing drugs, I can persevere through this?
I can quit just about anything.
Okay,
I can stop any habit and do anything, stop.
that's a real gift. But yeah,
The lady over here had a.
Sorry,
Oh.
Linda.
I'm the friendliest person. I'm outgoing. I'm an extrovert, but I have a fear of public speaking. And it's just so crazy that our job position, we don't have a choice but to be presenters, because that is our job position. That's our duty, to put
Okay.
information out there to our service members and to their families. And so Jackie and we are coworkers, but she probably never knew, like, I have a fear. Like, I would bust into a whole sweat if I had to talk in front of a group of people. So I'm still trying to deal with that, and I constantly beat myself up because I wanna make sure I do the best job that I can. And I constantly beat myself up because I don't want to put bad information out there or people to doubt me and like, why is she doing this? Let the older people do it, cause I'm like one of the youngest people in my office. So I struggle with that.
So now you're not only doing something you don't like to do, you're a person of a different race, and you're the youngest person in the room.
I would have never known. She is so confident, you would never know. I've heard her, and I'm the one that freezes, panics, and go, I can't do this. And I'm older than her.
Okay, listen to that. If you've never heard that before, listen to that. Here's what I know about public speaking. The audience doesn't know what you don't know unless you tell them. The audience doesn't know you screwed up most of the time unless you tell them, you know. So what is it that gets you through the fear of that?
What gets me there?
How do you get through the fear of public speaking, but you do it anyway?
Like, for me in my personal life, like, my friends always see me as the strong friend or the go-to person.
Okay,
So when I am up there doing public speaking or teaching or whatever case may be, to get through it is, my dad's prior military. And since I'm talking to military, I wanna make sure they get all the knowledge and information that they should receive.
okay,
Like, they're on the front line, they're doing the job for us, so to make sure I do a good job for them. So
okay,
that's what kinda gets me through.
okay, that's cool.
Just one, I was a social worker, one of the things I found was probably the best thing you can do is like when someone asks you a question, to be honest and say, I don't know, but I can find out for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I know that, you know, our clients would often be just pushed from one agency to another because the person really didn't know, so they said, why don't you call so-and-so? Why don't you call this and this? And that, you know, passing the buck is probably, it's something that a lot of people do in
Oh, that's very
Yeah.
true.
And it's, yeah, So.
And the fear of public speaking, I'm with you. Again, I didn't picture this 50 years ago. But you're normal. In fact, people fear public speaking more than they fear death, which means we'd rather be in the box than on the box. Yeah, there you go. Well, okay, divinity theology, maybe, okay. So, think back to a difficult time. What strengths and resources did you use to resolve the problem? Let's go back to a friend, the former thankfully drug addict. What resources did you use?
Well, I'm a bad example, cause I just use me, myself, and I.
Okay. That's cool, and you're right, you're bad, no, you're not a bad example, you're just not gonna help you here. So, anybody else got?
I had a really horrible childhood. I grew up without a mother. I didn't have a mother figure. And I constantly struggle with my own self.
Okay.
Wondering if I'm a good mom to my children, if they're taken care of, and
I'm seeing headlights, by the way.
am I being enough for them?
Okay.
That is an everyday struggle in my own head.
So what, obviously, 98.99999% of that is your inner critic. So how do you work through that? What resources do you use? Okay, give me more down.
My adopted family, my mom, she has been a huge
Pain in her butt.
she's been a
That's what
huge,
kids are for.
yeah. She's been a huge part of that, but also my children. My children help me every single day. They come up, give you hugs, say, I love you, you're the best mom.
That's because they are awesome.
Of course.
And so it's just those little tiny things, but then, when
Those
you
little
don't,
tiny things that are big things,
yeah,
right?
when you don't have those people and, then those thoughts come right back, and so it's a constant battle between your inner critic and between, what others are doing or telling you or whatnot.
Yes, definitely.
It's okay to make mistakes.
In fact, it's preferable, because if I believe you're perfect, I'm gonna try to be, and I'm gonna screw it up really bad. So, again, that authenticity, you can see my wheelchair, your family needs to see yours. Yeah, and funny thing is, when that happens, it's not gonna be as horrible as your inner critic says it's gonna be. You're probably gonna feel like you belong at that point, so yeah. Let me,
She needs to hurry up and get there.
good, awesome, awesome.
No pressure.
Yes, you absolutely can.
She's a very good mom.
What I've recently learned to do, so I came from a little bit of a similar background here, so I do a lot of that too. But what I've recently learned to do is talk to myself. So I literally, I'll start going down that, like on the way home yesterday, I was gone all day. I came to the conference and then I had work and, I didn't see my kids, I was headed home, it was almost 9 o'clock.
That's
So
always
then-
when it's the worst.
Yes, and so my thoughts started going down that path, I haven't seen my kids today. That guilt, all of it started creeping in, and so then I started thinking of every mistake that I've ever made as a parent. So I've learned to reframe it though, and as it started happening, I was like, no, wait, and I talk to myself, I literally say, Krista, this is not true. Let's look at all the things you do that make you a good mom and a great mom, and everything that you're learning to be a better mom and what you're able to do by going to this conference and learning more and, you know, working to support your family and all those things. So I have learned to address myself in that way, and it started to help.
Yes, amen. Y'all do that. I mean, really. You know, I went to school in Cincinnati, Ohio. I had a college that closed a couple years ago, but when I was going there, it was Cincinnati Bible College. And I was gonna come out be the youth pastor. And lots of people fed my inner critic that was never gonna happen, but it did. For a lot of my adult life, I lived within 2 hours of Cincinnati. So there were days when working at a ministry I founded where things weren't going so well, I would find a reason to go back to the campus because graduating there in a wheelchair was impossible. The Office of Vocational Rehabilitation of Ohio said so. I could go back, get on campus, and remind myself, God and me did this. So I would recommend, if it's a place you can go to, it's a picture on the wall, it's some sort of visual, tangible thing that you can look at and say, I overcame and did this. For you, it's your kids.
She has to do it for herself.
Oh, yeah.
Not
But
just them.
But the picture she could look at might be your kids, or might be, you know, so.
The red dot says pound head here.
There might be some times, I'm not sure if I have cerebral palsy, which means my brain is already damaged. I won't try that, but you're welcome.
I have a picture of my grandmother. She passed in 2010. And I don't know if you guys have seen, like, you can combine multiple pictures together and they paint it and they send it to you. So she never got to meet any of my children. So my mom actually had a picture drawn up for me of my grandmother with my 3 children and myself.
I had the buckets ready when she opened it. So she was going to cry a
I may
river
cry,
and
I'm
then
just
some.
kidding. It's awesome.
So
But
that,
they do a really good job.
that hangs up in my living room and it's 11 by 14. So when I do have those moments and those thoughts, I do look at that picture because
Awesome.
that's all she wanted for me was for me to break that cycle that I grew up in. So that's how I ground myself when those thoughts start to.
That's awesome, and if I had Kleenex, I'd give them to you.
You don't have enough.
No, next year, do the seminar, bring Kleenex, sorry about that.
I was just gonna say something about Cincinnati. We visited once and it's a beautiful city, but the one thing I remember, it is so hilly. And that would be, I would think that would have been a major obstacle for you.
Oh, yeah, you only,
And in a manual wheelchair.
Yeah.
Cincinnati College at the top of the steepest hill in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But I did it by God's grace. So, one of the things we need to do is we need to replace the truth with a lie. No.
Yeah. That's his inner critic speaking.
That's clearly another seminar.
I wanna go to it.
We want to replace the lie with the truth. and we wanna say it like that the first time. We wanna replace the lie with the truth. Not only do we need to do that, we need to rewire our brain. The author of one of the books that's on the list, When You Want Your Mind, says that instead of falling into ruts, which is the patterns we fall into naturally. You know, up in Alaska, there's a sign supposedly that says, choose your rut wisely, you'll be in it for the next 60 miles
Or longer.
or longer.
I used to live there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
true. It says, get gas now or else.
So we've got our ruts. It's what we fall into time after time after time. We need to replace our ruts with trenches. A rut goes nowhere unless you're in Alaska. And it's the path we go down that doesn't serve us well. So we need to start telling ourselves messages to remind us of what the truth is, not just one truth, but intentionally arguing with the lie to tell the truth. Another way to do this is to reframe, you brought it up, we need to look at something from another point of view. How many of us know how to worry? I'm really good at worrying. You know, we can do intervention later.
She can word and fluff with the best of them.
Okay, so we all know how to worry. We take an issue and we look at every angle to see what can go wrong. I'm suggesting that we take that same thing and look at it from every angle to find out what we can do right and where we need to ask for help. So reframing the issue. The next thing we need to do is we need to exercise our gratitude muscle. For some reason, when we choose to be grateful, it sets off the positive endorphins in our brain. So choosing to say thank you, choosing not to curse at the guy who just cut you off the highway, choosing being grateful is the way to go. Another thing, take the long view. You know, we look at our lives with all the mistakes we make and compare it to somebody else's Instagram life. Because on Facebook, I'm always smiling, I'm always happy, and I'm always doing cool stuff, and that's a part of my life, but that is not my life. So we want to take the long view.
I call it fake book.
Of the fake book. Yeah,
Social media is a disease.
we probably could start a 12-step program with people.
He refuses to be on it, honestly. He will not do it.
Good. I think that's wonderful. Another thing you can do is tell yourself to stop. Or give someone permission to tell you to stop. When I start going into one of my if only and I can't, and why, and borderline whining, my wife knows she can stop. Don't go down, you don't have the energy to go down that road. here's the thing, when I allow myself to go down into that negative spiral, when I get out of the spiral, the problem still exists, and the energy that you use in dealing with the problem has been spent in the downward spiral. So tell yourself it's okay to stop. Give yourself a break. If you're a parent and you're a parent of someone with a disability, or you are a person, with a disability, taking breaks is hard. Not only because we feel like we have to be twice as good just to keep up, but a lot of my friends with disabilities, including me, spend most of our energy starting something or stopping something. So taking a break, it's like, I don't wanna lose the momentum. But take a break. Encourage somebody today. Say thank you to somebody today. Take a victory lap. When you do something well, you go through your favorite drive-through and buy one, whatever that is. Somebody tells you it was really good, your brain's on you, get on to the next project, stop and say thank you. Give yourself a victory lap. Finally, connect with your spiritual side. A friend of mine says that many times he has to preach to the darkest place he knows, his own soul. I am constantly preaching to my soul. Feed your well of self-talk. What are the quotes you see that remind yourself of something positive you want to remember? Start with the scriptures, the literature of your faith. For instance, Joshua chapter 1 verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Find what feeds you and take the time to let it. We've got 5 minutes left. One more thing I want to do, but does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay. So, I want to leave you with something that in my church world I would call a benediction. Let me just share it with you. This is my fondest hope for you, that you remember this. You are not controlled by fear. You are not stuck. You are not a slave to your habits. You are not a prisoner of your addictions. You are not a victim. You may have been victimized, but you don't have to stay that way anymore. You are not failing. You are not unlikable. You are not unworthy of love. You are not your past. You are not what you did. You are not what someone else did to you. You are not who others say you are. You are not your unhealthy thoughts. You are not who your unhealthy thoughts, your inner critic, says you are. You are not done. You are what God says you are. thank you for coming, thank you for allowing me to process my inner critic in front of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If we be of service to you, my contact information is on the back of the handout. You also have our website address. If you're one of those technology people, there's a QR code. If you do something fancy, that'll be there too. Anyway, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.